Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm Adam. This is Open Late, and in this case, it's really living up to the name. When I thought of the name for what I do on Wednesday evenings, it is not only late in the evening, but these are old figures, and I couldn't be more excited to be opening these old figures. I was kind of late to Thundercats, at least the Super 7 Ultimates Thundercats. Um, sort of, but sort of. When they solicited the first wave with Lion-O, I immediately thought I needed that Lion-O. Now, at the time, I wasn't really looking at picking up something like Super 7 Ultimates. I was, not even buying that many toys at the time, believe it or not. I mean, that sounds crazy now, but a $55 figure seemed outrageous to me at that point, as somebody that was, picking up some vintage toys here and there, and I was getting into classified and um, Marvel Legends a little bit, but those were, at the time you're talking, 25, $26 kind of thing. So figures that were like double that price, I was like, that's crazy for a toy. Um, but here we are now, completely different ball game. Um, I hate to say it, but price point wise, when I see a Thundercats figure that I like and it's retail priced, I go after it. So now at this point with Slithe and Vultureman in the collection, now the only Super 7 Ultimates that I need from Thundercats is Tigra. And I'm still hopeful that I will find one, at or around sort of a retail price, because I've been lucky with everything else. I've picked them up where I could. They pop up from time to time, here or there. And so far, I've got the whole Thundercats team from season 1. From season 2, all I'm missing is Bengali, but Bengali's still fairly easy to source. And this completes my mutants. I've got Monkian was the first mutant that I got. Monkian was a figure that I had as a kid, and vividly remember Lion-O and Monkian being sort of the two Thundercat figures that I actually had as a kid in terms of the vintage figures. And so those were sort of the two that I needed from Super 7 Ultimates. And I've bought Super 7 Deluxe as well. And then Mumra, the Ever Living, of course. And then it kind of went from there. And I got back into the cartoon, and I got into some other figures that were sort of closer to these price points. And I got some of the Super 7 Ultimates Ninja Turtles and loved those, and sort of grew to appreciate what Super 7 is doing with the Ultimates line. It's a very roundabout way of sort of getting to these guys. These I picked up from eCollectibles. I was just sort of browsing through eCollectibles as a toy collector would, one evening, and just sort of looking at all the different lines that I like and that I collect and so on. And noticed that despite having been out of stock for ages, like years, I think at this point for Slithe, and probably not too far off for Vultureman. I mean, he was available a little bit later, but I mean, he's been out of stock for quite some time. They were there. They were there. They were available on the website, and sort of it was like a no-brainer. I just put them in the cart and checked out. And as soon as I checked out, I sent a message to Mike from eCollectibles, and I said, "Hey, I just bought Slithe and Vultureman. Are those really in stock? Like, is that an error? Is that like are those reissues, or like what's going on?" And he said, no, they were doing some inventory in the warehouse, and they came across a few kind of random odds and ends, and so they kind of got added back into the inventory online. And sure enough, he said, I'll double check on Monday. Like, I think it was a Friday or something like that. And he said, I'll double check on Monday, but sure enough, here they are. And Yeah, there you go. So Slithe, which is sort of long overdue in my Thundercats collection, and Vultureman, which is equally as overdue, are now part of my collection. Now, these aren't the, Slithe has gotten a reissue. This is not the reissue. This is sort of a last of the stock from eCollectibles. So these are the ones that came in the, the cardboard box with the bag, with the slip cover. I think the reissue of Slithe doesn't even have the slip cover. I unbox everything, but I keep some boxes, and the Thundercats are boxes that I have kept. So let's quickly take a look at the box. These are, with the slipcover and everything, these do definitely feel more premium than what you get now without the box, without the bag, without the slipcover. It's sort of a gunmetal, metallic outer sleeve there with well, not the Thundercats logo. Obviously, it's the Mutants logo in the case of Vultureman and Slithe. You get the Thundercats, graphic on the back there. But I'll take this sleeve off. And there is Vultureman looking so awesome. I'm so excited to be getting these. I can't tell you how excited I was that they sort of announced the Slithe reissue. But then the fact that I was like, well, it's not going to be the same box. It's not the same. It's like kind of like Tigra reissue in the deluxe. I could just get that Tigra, but I want the extra hands. I want the extra stuff. The new version of Ultraman doesn't come with the same stuff. He's a more simplified sort of basic version. Anyway, Slithe is in a big, thick box, like the comparison wise, from the side, like that's twice as wide as Vultureman. Slithe is twice as wide as Vultureman because he's a big, chunky boy. Same sleeve, same slip cover there, but there you go. Oh, look at him. Look at him. Nice big window box like you get with Thundercats. The inside box, I think the new one that doesn't have the slip cover, there's like more detail. There's sort of more stuff going on there. But I like this. Then you get the presentation with the slip cover and all that. You get the figure, the extra heads and all that kind of stuff in there. And then on the backs of them, of course, we get the artwork and then the bios for them. You know who they are. You know who Slithe is. You know who Vultureman is. These are mutants from Third Earth. One thing that I will say, the new comic, the current comic that is out, is really cool. It's really fun. There's a lot more lore as far as who the mutants are, and like there's more mutants. Slithe is the leader of sort of the reptilian mutants, but Monkey and is sort of it's not just the main guys. There's a lot more going on. The comic book is great. That's what I'm trying to get at. The comic book is great. If you're not reading the Thundercats comic book, it's worth checking out for sure. All right. Now, before I get these open, let me just quickly say hello in the chat here. Gabrielle is here. Imperious Rex collects. Welcome, Kelly. Good to have you. He says Thundercats. Is that meant to be? Is that are you spelling that phonetically how you pronounce it? Or do you mean Thundercats? Thank you guys for being here. Thank you for hanging out. While I open up some very, very cool toys. I'm just honestly, I'm just kind of like enjoying looking at these. As I said, I wasn't 100% certain that I would ever get Slithe, and then when they did the announced the reissue, that was pretty exciting. But the fact that I actually get the first release is pretty awesome. So I'm gonna get them opened up. I think I'm gonna open up Vultureman first. I'm so excited for Slithe. But I have this thing, it's the same when I eat. When I eat, everybody has their way that they eat, right? You grew up eating a particular way. I start eating the things that I'm least excited about, and then I leave the sort of most exciting thing for last. That's just how I eat. That's how I open my toys. So that's how I'm going to open these toys. Allison Troy is here. Good to have you, Allison. Member for 24 months. I can't honestly believe that I've had channel memberships for that long, and have yet to do anything worthwhile for members. So thank you for that, Allison. Shame on me. Kelly says my mom never let me have Thundercats, so I get Thundercats instead. Yeah, these are the we have Thundercats at home, right? It's these less thunderous Thundercats. I can't reach over with my knife to get this open, so I'm actually gonna cut the tape on this guy too while I'm at it. Might as well. I don't think I'm going to need to cut anything out. I think these probably have wire to hold them in. Put him over here. I will open up Vultureman. Thundercats is like a funny IP for me because it's a IP that I love, that I have always loved, but I wouldn't say it is an IP that like I was really very steeped in the lore, if you want to say that. Like I watched it when it was on, but I don't remember a lot of the storylines. I just remember the theme song, the intro, which in my estimation is arguably the best theme song and intro of any 80s cartoon. Feel free to disagree. I know a lot of people do. I have stated that opinion multiple times, and I know that I've had lots of people disagree and say, no, it's this. And I say, agree to disagree, because I think the Thundercats, between the animation and the song, is probably the most exciting, dynamic, engaging of all the intros out there. Oh, come on. These hands do not want to come out. But I also don't want to force them to break it. All right, so some of these hands shot all the way. I think what I'll do is I'll get them both out of the packaging and then talk about them. Because this is the least exciting part and the noisiest part. And the most awkward part. He came out quite easily. That's good. This stuff taped. So this Vultureman comes with a bunch of stuff. The sort of new version, I think it's technically like the toy release version. Comes with almost nothing. So much stuff. It doesn't want to come out. Oh, come on. Anyway. Man, these trays are not working with me. Oh, for crying out loud. This is... kind of forgotten how annoying these were to get out. I haven't opened one of the older... Well, obviously, I haven't opened one of the older ones in a while. Finally. Okay, that's Vultureman out of the box. Let me get him. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Vultureman is actually hard to get to stand because he's so top heavy and he stands on these tiny little feet. And like just by holding him, I can feels like he's gonna be a pain in the butt. As I said, I'm gonna open both of them to get this boring, noisy, dumb part of the video out of the way. Because yeah, this part's lame. Oh, there's Slithe. Big chunky boy. Slithe and the head are in the front tray. All the accessories are in the tray at the back, second tray. Tray parts. Not a ton of accessories with Slithe, but to be honest, you know, what more would you necessarily want? It makes sense that Vultureman comes with more stuff, and I'll kind of, you know, get more into that in a moment. But first, I got to get all this stuff out of this tray. And I think this one's going to be a lot easier to get out. Far fewer small little pieces, so... I love his face. He's such a weird, almost grotesque little creature. He's so cool. All right. Get his tail oriented the right way. Get his legs sort of oriented the right way-ish. He's a cool little figure. All right. Let me adjust this angle. Try to do it once. Try to get it to set where I want it, more or less. That'll do. All right, now the fun part. Now we can take a look at the figures. Which I am very excited to do. Gabrielle says, do you have a favorite from the Thundercat figures you own so far? That's a good question. That's a very good question. You know what? I think it might be Monkeyin. Again, it's just part of that is just the nostalgia for me of Monkeyin being one of the figures that I remember having. Believe it or not, the Robert Bill figure, I really have like a strong, very strong sort of feeling for, but it's very much like a nostalgic thing. I had Robert Bell that I didn't for years and years and years. I had the Robert Bell figure, vintage figure, and didn't even really know what it was. It was just sort of a figure that I had picked up, that I think probably my mom had picked up, whether at a thrift store or a garage sale or something like that. She would just sort of pick things up that she would see. And so I had a Robert Bell figure. But as I said, I was never sort of steeped in the lore of Thundercats, so I didn't know about the Robert Burbles. And so that Robert Bill figure was, I was excited to get that one. Mumra, like the crippled old Mumra, is really, really cool, especially when you consider that the vintage figure was just like kind of a little statue almost. I don't know. I like all of them. And I like all of them because my kids play with all of them too. Like we like these actually, Thundercats are one of the things that come off the shelf quite often, and actually get played with. So again, it's cool to get a couple more mutants because we've had Jackalman and Monkeyin kind of fighting all the Thundercats on their own. Strangely, Mumra doesn't come off the shelf as often as those two. But anyway, yeah. To answer your question, I think Monkeyin. I think Monkeyin, great figure, and has the sort of nostalgia connected to it. I love Lionel, of course, but that's kind of feels like a bit of an obvious answer. All right, let's take a look at Vultureman. He looks great. The paint apps are great. You've got, just like in the cartoon, he's got the tiny little red pupils. Weird. My camera's at a weird angle, unfortunately, so I can't. But you can see, like, I'm pretty sure that's how he looks in the cartoon. With that tiny little red dot for the pupil of the eye. There's a nice wash to this. It's not just sort of a beige plastic. You can see kind of a reddish orange tone to it as well. Big chunky feathers on the shoulder, so that's going to limit articulation. I mean, the arm, doesn't go up very far. But that being said, I mean, the articulation, there's what am I trying to say? There's a barbell in the chest here, so he does get sort of some motion, front, back, side to side. The skirt is a little harder than I would like it maybe to be, but he still gets, decent articulation there. What really sort of the sort of one thing that Super7 doesn't always have going for them is that the knees and ankles can be a little bit weak, and I wonder if that's what sort of the Vultureman issue is. Mine seemingly stands up okay. He does have these knees So this is one thing that is kind of weird. They break up the sculpt, just in the middle of like the kneecap, but there's also the joint, the disc sort of plugs into the lower leg, so you can twist the leg, and then it breaks up the kneecap, which looks really weird and kind of gross, depending on how you sort of get it set up. But they're toys. The fact that these move so much better than the vintage ones um, is why I don't complain about that. These are way more fun to play with than the vintage ones that were just sort of your standard 80s 5 POA, which was fine at the time, but these are way better. Objectively, these are much better toys. As far as accessories for Vultureman, he gets the screaming head, so he gets the angry vulture head, which I think is probably going to be my display head, my sort of default head. He gets the sort of vulture claw pincher staff spear thing. I don't know. Painted all up in silver. He gets some sort of blaster weapon. I don't know if this is from a specific episode or not. Like I said, I sort of have to go back. Once I get the figures, I kind of go back and try to figure out what accessories they come with. I suspect that this had a very specific function in a very specific episode. Feel free to let me know. I vaguely remember, as I said, I kind of got more into the cartoon when I got more into the toys. So I've watched the whole series, front to back a couple times now. And I vaguely remember that Vultureman sort of builds this, but I can't remember what its function is. I think it makes people scared or something like that. Like it's a gas that makes people scared or something like that. I can't remember. As I said, let me know if you can sort of, if you know what it is. He gets the sort of open hands. I'm doing this backwards and all wrong because I'm just kind of distracted by all this. I'm still excited about these two figures. Normally I start with normally I do the figure. Normally, I do the box, then I do the figures, then I do the accessories. When I do the accessories, normally I start with the hands. I don't start with, the big gas gun and the claw. So going back to sort of the order that I typically do this, he comes with the open hands on the out of the box, and then you do get some gripping hands as well. Big, gross, nasty hands. 3 very, very clawed fingers and a very long nailed thumb as well. Paint on the nails is not very good, but I don't care. Then we get some bigger hands, and so these are going to carry or be able to sort of hold and carry some of the bigger accessories that he comes with. So nice that they included, all the sets of hands that you will need, to grip both the smaller grip and sort of the bigger part like that, I guess, just as a reference point. He gets another little kind of spacey blaster thing that again must come from a specific episode. Like it seems so specific in terms of the details and stuff. But I don't know which episode. He comes with a little sort of pistol style blaster. I think this is one that he sort of uses a few times. I don't think there's anything especially special about that. His superpower potion, which he can drink and get his superpowers. He gets super strong. I think in a particular episode where he's got his potion. Now Vulture is of course kind of the mechanic, the engineer. He's sort of the I guess it's Tigra for Thundercats. That's sort of the equivalent, the Vulture man equivalent. So he gets a sort of little engineering goggles that'll fit, I believe, on either head. And then he comes with some tools as well. So he comes with a little wrench. He comes with a set of little scissor type things, and he comes with a screwdriver as well. Pretty cool accessories. This is unlike any screwdriver I've ever seen, because I think, oh no, I guess it's sort of just like a flathead screwdriver, but just the way that it's sculpted. It almost looks like it's kind of like a 4-sided screwdriver. But yeah, cool accessories with Vultureman. And as I said, happy to get Vultureman, happy to sort of round out the mutants. But really, really the mutant that I wanted, the mutant that I've been sort of trying to get seemingly for a couple years now is Slithe. There's Slithe looking perfect. Like this is such a good, this is such a well executed sort of representation of what you saw in the cartoon. Like the paint is great on this thing. The paint colors and sort of how they've done the paint is great. Not all of it is executed perfectly. Super7 is sort of notoriously sloppy is the wrong word, but like, the attention to detail isn't always there, and QC can be, a little bit of an issue. And if you look hard enough, you'll find issues. But I'm not going to look at that hard because I don't want to, because I don't need to. Slithe looks great. Again, the wash, in the paint app, there's like a lot of different kind of shades of green, through his reptilian skin. And the blue looks really good. It's quite striking. And then, the harness and his sort of crown piece are all, glued on or sort of molded over top of the figure itself. So there's some good, differentiation between the color and stuff like that. So for the most part, the paint doesn't have any issues. There's a few little nitpicky spots that I'm not going to nitpick because I don't want to. Because I want to just love this character. He comes with gripping hands as well, just sort of the standard gripping hands. The alternate hands that we get for Slithe are these sort of open ones. And they look really, really good. There's a little bit of an issue in terms of like where the mold would have sort of disengaged with this. So he gets kind of like a little wart, and that's fine. He's a reptile. Why wouldn't he be warty? Alternate head. This is definitely how I'm going to display Slithe on my shelf. I think, as I look over my shoulder to look at my shelf, I think all of the mutants have their alternate heads on my shelf because they're just a little bit more expressive. They're just a little bit weirder and grosser. And for the mutants, it's kind of like, that's the way to go, like, you don't want like a boring face on the mutants. So just like Vultureman, I think Slice's gonna get that alternate face sculpt there. Brian Brink is here. He says, I love the alternate heads they added for the mutants. Yeah, exactly. Brian knows. Good to have you, buddy. No Chewing is here as well. Welcome to all. Brian says the bigger gun is the shifter. It has the unique ability to shift the bodies of two individuals. It swaps their personalities, like Freaky Friday. Oh, okay. That's this one or this one? The white one or the blue one? Because I know that all the stuff, like that's, with Super7, that all of the stuff that you get is meaningful. At least in sort of like one episode or whatever. Like they don't just kind of throw things in there. Slithe maybe is the exception because he just kind of gets like weapons. But I feel like that's kind of on brand for Slithe. So he gets an axe, which is still sculpted quite nicely. Kind of like a primitive finish to it, but the metallic silver, two-tone silver. It looks really, really good. You get another axe, which is a little bit more detailed, a little bit more fun. Looks like it's kind of made out of like a vine, and then the blade's even more primitive. It looks like it's kind of cobbled, not cobbled. That's how you make shoes. It's smithed, I guess, out of like a chunk of something, but it's chipped and it's scraped, and there's a lot of sculpting to the blade as well as the shaft, the spear, the handle, whatever you want to call it. I'll move him in. And then the mace. Is this a mace? Is this a flail? Is this a... Feel free, any of you medieval weapon aficionados, to let me know exactly what this is. It is a spiked ball on the end of a long handle. There's a specific name for that. I want to call it a mace, but I bet that's probably wrong. Anyway, you know, Slithe just bludgeons people. He's just a big, seemingly dumb, reptilian-brained mutant, but smarter than he looks, or at least the current comic book sort of shows him to be smarter than he looks, sort of smarter than he lets on, I guess. Brian said the blue one. Okay, so this is the shifter. I don't remember that. I don't remember that one. But now I'm going to have to, like I said, I'm going to go back and sort of rewatch specific episodes to try to find, you know, what specifically, you know, all that stuff's for. I'm particularly impressed by some of these accessories that Super7 used to do, and I feel like they don't do as many of these anymore, where, you know, you've got this great set of goggles that are so specific, you know, with the hexagon shape for the lenses, and then you get sculpted strap, you get a sculpted buckle. You know, all the details are just really, really good. And I think that's... I almost don't want to cover up his weird, creepy red eyes, but it just looks good. Like, that's a good look. No? Yeah? What do you guys think? If you're doing Super7 Ultimates Thundercats, which heads are on your display? If you have them on display. If you're, you know, if you're an inbox collector, maybe you've never put the goggles on the head. Like, that looks so good. There's so much personality in that head sculpt, and these goggles, you know, feel like a bonus. I might leave them on just sort of like that, so they're on the figure but not on the eye, so I can still see that. I can still see those little red pupils. Vultureman. Yeah, this stuff's... I don't know how people can... I don't know how people can look at these. It's still okay. Before I say what I was about to say, I will say that Super7 may have flipped a little bit. These pack-ins, you know, all the stuff that you get with these figures is awesome, and it really adds to the enjoyment and sort of the play value, if you want, when you get, you know, the extra head, and you get the goggles, and you get all the weapons from specific episodes. You know, you get the superpower potion, you get the what is it called, the shifter, you know, whatever this one is, but I'm sure it's specific. You know, it's just so much cool stuff. When you have sort of these older Super7 figures in hand, I can't understand why people get hung up on the articulation, because you're getting so much cool stuff, and they're just so much fun. Yeah, they don't move like, you know, a Mafex figure or something like that, but that's not what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to be this. They're supposed to look like they're straight out of the cartoon. And if you put too much articulation in them, I agree with Super7. If you put too much articulation in them, it breaks up the sculpt, and then, you know, they don't look as good, and so it kind of misses the mark in that respect. So it's, you know, I guess it's just a perspective thing. Now, sometimes they get the articulation wrong. I mean, sometimes the articulation schemes are weird and silly, and you know, the figure doesn't move correctly at all. But for the most part, I think they do a very good job. Slithe is, you know, big and chunky and clumsy, and I don't need him in a superhero pose. I need him to be able to sort of like raise a club over his head, and you know, maybe have a little bit of a dynamic sort of pose with the club over his head. So that's that's what I need Slithe to do. Like, that's it. What more do you want, really? That's what I don't get. Like, really, what do you want Slithe to do? And not just, Slithe specifically, but like just Thundercats in general, or I think one figure that I will be a little bit more critical of, the Ninja Turtles. I'm a little more critical of because they're ninjas, so they should be able to hold their weapons, in the way that those weapons should be held or what have you. But these guys are just great toys, and like I said, these are some of the toys that come off our shelf very, very often. And I can assure you that this weekend, these are probably going to get played with in a big way. Oh, yeah. Gabrielle says, Morning Star? Sure. I'll take your word for it. I genuinely don't know. I think you might be right, because I knew that there was like a slightly different term. I think a mace is the spiked ball on a chain with a handle. I think you might be right that this might be a Morning Star, but Gabrielle says whichever head is the silliest goes on the display. Yeah, for sure. Unless it's like dumb. But in the case of like the Super7 Ultimates Thundercat stuff, all the mutant heads have been like bang on. I think the monkey head is just open. Jackalman, I think, is just open as well. Actually, they're all open. They went from sort of the closed mouths, which is sort of the standard, which I think was the vintage toy versions, and then they all get an open mouth, sort of more expressive, whether they're sort of crowing or cawing or whatever a vulture does, or kind of groaning and moaning like Slithe does. The alternate heads are awesome. Which isn't to say that the standard heads are bad. Just these are so much better, so much more fun. Like even the kind of like he's got the slightly closed eye in the standard one, but the even more closed eye of the alternate just had so much personality. These are great. These are awesome figures, and I am super, super excited to have them in my collection. Yeah, I'm not gonna like play with them and stuff like that right now, but as I said, we will be playing with these on the weekend for sure. All right, that's all I really got tonight. Just a couple of Super7 Ultimates Thundercats figures. What are your thoughts? If you're collecting Thundercats, what's your favorite figure? Also, what's a sleeper Thundercats Ultimate that I should have? Maybe I have it, maybe I don't, but let me know what you think a must-have figure is. That's not like one of the mains. Because there's still a bunch that I don't have that I'm kind of on the fence about. But we'll see. Anyways, as I always say, it is always more fun to open toys with friends. And so thank you guys for joining me tonight to open two toys that I was very, very excited about. And I still can't believe that I've got them. The fact that I got Slithe, the first release of Slithe at retail, because it just happened to sort of get recounted in a warehouse, is still pleasantly surprising and somewhat shocking to me. This guy's awesome. This guy is everything that I hoped he would be and more. And Vultureman is admittedly better than I expected. So super, super excited to have these in my collection, and super, super thankful that you guys were here hanging out. Anyways, more videos to come. Man, I'm sort of re-energized and excited about toys again. So I'm putting out as many videos as I can. I still got lots of stuff to unbox. I'm gonna have another video. I think Friday. Yes, Friday I will have another video, and Saturday morning I will have another video, and Sunday I will be doing another live video. So yeah, tune in and come hang out. Hit the notification button if you don't want to miss those videos. Anyway, until next time, everybody. Bye-bye.